I can't believe we're here, but I think this is the last interior furniture project before we get to paint the interior of the boat. My name is Matt. Follow along as I turn Duracell, the legendary ocean racing sailboat, into a comfortable cruising home. This week, we are going to build the galley counters. These counters are MDF with melamine on them. We're obviously not going to be using them. They've just been placeholders for the past year. Now what I'm building this week is the substrate for the counter. So I'm going to be building it out of the Edura panels that I've been using the past few weeks, which is a foam and fiberglass, the same product I've been making in my garage for the past few years now. And so this is, like I said, just the substrate. So the actual counters will be sitting on top of this Edura panel substrate. And in building these, there are a few logistical design puzzles that we need to go through to make these perfect. Before I started building the counters, I had to level the boat to make sure that our galley counters will be level. Every once in a while in the comments, we get questions about if the boat is level. And so when the boat was dropped off 3 years ago, almost 4 years ago, they did level the boat then. And every once in a while, I try to level it again, just because I think things settle. You know, I weighed the boat a while back and that threw the boat out of level again. And this is both fore and aft and thwartship. With most of the projects on the boat is close enough to being level that I don't worry too much about it being a little bit off. Things like the floorboards and the small counter spaces, seats. But for this big galley counter, since it's got so much surface area, I would like to get the boat as close as I can to being level. It's a hard job because the boat's so big. It's hard to be super accurate. And you know, it's kind of scary. And so, but I think for the galley counters, it is very worth it to make sure I can get it as level as I can. So what I'm using to level the boat thwartship is I have this green hose or tube that goes from one side of the boat all the way to the other. It's filled with just water with food coloring in it. It's a water level is what it is. And so I'll match the water level on both sides of the boat. Now, according to my level, this starboard side is about a ½ an inch low. And I can tell that because the water level is about a ½ an inch high of my zip tie on this side, and it's level with the zip tie on that side. And so you can see here the water level is lower on this side. So this port side is higher than the starboard side. Now this brings up the question, is the boat symmetrical? And all I can do is assume that the boat was built where the shear line is exactly the same on both sides, and that I installed these chain plates in exactly the same place on both sides. And it's especially difficult for the fore and aft leveling because the boat is not symmetrical fore and aft. I don't have two places on the bow and the stern that I know are exactly symmetrical, except for the water line. And so again, it's a big assumption, but it's all I can go on, that the water line is exactly level on the boat. It's the best I can do just to, you know, in the situation where we are building a boat in our backyard, to figure out if the boat's level. All right, so let's level the boat. I really hate doing this job because it's nerve-wracking to just pump up the boat, but that's why I built these cradles, is so that I can manipulate the boat. This is what, if you remember, this is how I weighed the boat initially. So all I'm doing is jacking up this side of the cradle, and then I'll jack up that side of this same side of the aft cradle. And as I'm jacking it up, I'm jacking up the jack stands as well to make sure that, you know, everything has a nice touch on the boat. So it's a very slow process. It's a very nerve-wracking process because there's lots of creaking and groaning, but we'll get through it. Okay, ready? I'm gonna ease it down. All right, it's a lot closer, within probably a 1/4 inch, I would say. And so it's at the point where I'm kind of splitting hairs. I might do one more session of just pumping the boat up and seeing how much closer it gets, but I think we're to a point where I can call it good. So I've got it pretty close, athwart ship, side to side. To check it fore and aft, like I said, we could put a level on the water line. I would need to use the laser, and it would need to be dark out. I can also check the bulkheads, and again, it's a big assumption that the bulkheads were put in the boat square to the water line. So it's just another data point we can use. So we'll go and check those now. Okay, so we're going to check the level of the bulkheads that Mike Plant installed. I think he was probably a better boat builder than I am. So this is very close. It's like, I would say it's pretty much spot on. And so now let's see how my bulkheads turned out. So they're also very close. Of course, this is not a great test because it's hard for me to get a really good reading on the bulkhead. My level is kind of a cheapie. I'm making big assumptions that the level is super accurate. So, but it's as far as fore and aft goes, I think it's very, very close and good enough to install the counters. At least get the counters level.
I'll be using these placeholder melamine counters as a template for cutting out the actual counter substrates. The first step is to trim down the counters to make them a little smaller. As you can see, there's a big overhang here and a hip jammer corner.
Ah!
Excuse me?
It's a hip jammer. So I spent the morning yesterday adjusting things for this counter. The biggest adjustment I made was I cut off about 2 inches off of this edge. I had a big overhang over here just to see what it would feel like to have an even bigger counter, but we decided we didn't like it. It actually made this throughway right here a lot smaller, and so cutting this off opened that up. It's a lot easier to walk around now. It feels more symmetrical. I also drew out the sink and I drew out the stove. All the adjustments I've made, I feel like I'm ready to cut this thing out. The last thing I need to do is cut out the hole for the freezer, and so I'm going to cut that out of the template before I cut these out of the real panels that I'm going to be making. We'll mark out and cut out the hole for the freezer before we use these as templates to cut out the real panels.
Finding the hole in the counter for the freezer was a little more difficult than I expected. First, I tried to measure where it was, but I found it was too risky. This is something I don't want to miss. So instead, I templated the position of the freezer in place. The template uses reference points so I can mimic that shape on top of the counter where I can't see the freezer box. And as you can see, my measurements were almost a 1/4 inch off compared to my templating when it came to drawing it out. But I wouldn't know exactly how well I did until it was cut out. Sure enough, the template did the trick. It was darn near perfect.
This is a very long shot of you staring into the freezer. What did you think you'd find? Ice cream?
Yeah, I was gazing into the freezer. I used the remainder of the potable water tank paint for the freezer box, and the bottom of the barrel of the paint was a little chunky, so I was contemplating sanding it down to a smoother finish for the inside of the freezer box, but I'll get to it later.
So you didn't find any ice cream?
No, I didn't find any ice cream. The freezer is not cold yet, unfortunately. Again, I'm cutting these out of the Adura panels, which are foam core and fiberglass, which will make an excellent lightweight substrate for the countertops.
So we've got this side cut out. I'm ready to pull this side out. I've got it all level, and problem is this one's a lot bigger than this first piece we cut out, so it might be difficult to get down to the shop. All right, I'm ready to fit these in the boat. Let's take them up there. That doesn't appear to fit.
Wait, are we doing a dramatic redesign of the galley here?
Yeah. There you go. Perfect.
Voila.
So,
No voila.
voila.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And after a lot of fussing and futzing, I finally got the counters level.
So we have decided on the material of counters we're going to use. And so what's going to happen is we're not going to glue these panels down right now. We're going to wait till that countertop gets here. We're going to glue the countertop to these pieces, and then we'll install them with the countertop attached to them. It'll be a lot easier for me to cut the countertop to shape with these pieces in the garage than it would be them already glued down. So, and then we can actually do some more vacuum bagging. So, very exciting. I think it looks excellent. And on to painting now.
I love the countertops, and I'm finding myself a little bit distracted by your fashion statement right now.
Mm-hmm. Are you the fashion police now?
It's just a little unusual, is all I'm saying.
This is totally normal for a boat bum. Totally normal boat bum attire.
Boat bum. I can't say that. Boat bum attire.
Boat bum attire. Before I start, we are so close to 100,000 subscribers. We would love it if you would subscribe to our channel. It'd be another major milestone in the project. We also have a couple new Patreons to thank this week. First, thank you to Martin, who's an architect down in Arizona. He's not a sailor or a boater, but he is very much a DIYer and having rebuilt his own home, his old house. So thank you very much to Martin. And also thank you to Ricardo. Ricardo is local here. He is retired from the Navy. He's been a sailor for a long time, having owned many boats. Now he's really into stand-up paddleboard paddles, and he builds them out of wood and epoxy. They're super light, uses carbon fiber. They're really, really beautiful. So thank you very much to both Ricardo and Martin and everybody who's been supporting our channel. We could never have gotten this far without all of you, and we'll see you next week.